Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, do you have animals? I've had on the show over the last couple of years a vet who's very awake and knows what's going on, a lady who keeps horses who's interested in the food that goes to horses to keep her livestock going. And of course, most of us, I say most of us, but a lot of us, a large portion, love their pets. But we're all very keen to feed ourselves very healthily. But do we ever give our pets much thought when we go into, well, wherever you go and buy your pet food, hopefully not a supermarket? And what kind of food are you feeding them? Well, a gentleman who's my guest today, Mark Scott, got in touch with me and said, Richard, I want to talk to you particularly about the pet food industry because like so many of these big corporations, all is not as it seems. So to start our conversation, that's where we're going to head off. Mark, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you with me.
Thank you, Richard, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So we're going to talk about pets, but I noticed that you have a microphone there and headphones, so it looks like you probably do some of your own recording. So tell us a little bit about yourself so that we know who we're talking to and all of that.
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I just recently found out at the age of 50 I'm dyslexic. Everyone else seemed to know apart from
everyone
me.
else knew.
I went, oh, that's why I think differently. So going back 8 years, I was running 6 businesses. I completely burnt out, and I was running businesses from stag and hen party websites to travel to India to self-catering properties, just so many different things.
Wow.
And I just hit a brick wall about 8 years ago. I literally couldn't sleep, my food, my health was just terrible. All these things. I was really good at smoking, really good at drinking and eating crap food. And I paid the price for it. So about 8 years ago, I decided to pack everything in. I said, that's it. I just cannot keep chasing the buck. And I decided to take a year out. And in this year, I kind of came across this biohacking. I don't know if you've heard the phrase biohacking.
Yes, I've heard people saying they do it. I don't really understand it, so that's where you come in, hopefully.
So biohacking is all these people in the Bay in America made a lot of money, but their health had completely gone, deteriorated. And they said, okay, they were computer hackers, in the good sense, making things work faster, quicker. And said, how can I hack my body and mind for best performance? So how can I use modern day technology, nutrition, exercises to perform better? So I started following these guys, went, oh, wow, I started to feel like when I was 20 again, I have all this energy and I just feel good. And I just got rid of that lethargic and I was just clear thinking and my stress had completely dropped. So I suddenly just felt great. And then that year, about 8 years ago, there was a massive storm that came through the UK and a tree had fallen down in the front of my garden. And I went out with my axe every single day and I was just chopping it up by hand, my kind of like meditation bit. And I said, by the time I finish this tree, whatever I want to do, whatever I'm going to do next, it's got to be more than just making money. It's got to be something that's passionate, that I'm like truly believe in. At that time, myself and my friend Tony, we had 4 dogs and 3 of them, Richard, got cancer, all under the age of 10. I'm like, 3
Wow.
off. I mean, this is like bonkers. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And then I went, I'm going to check that food out. And I'm looking at the side of the packet and I'm just like, I can't believe I didn't check the dog food and the ingredients. That aha moment, because you just trust all their marketing. And kibble, sorry, is the name for dry dog food. So I started doing research to see if I can help my dogs and my friends' dogs. And we came across this raw dog food. And then the more I read into it, I'm like, well, it makes total sense. There's 8.7 million species of animals on planet Earth, and 99.9999999 recurring eat raw. And it's only as humans and the domesticated animals that we feed that eat highly processed food. And guess which ones have the chronic diseases?
Let me think about that now. Oh.
Yeah. So that was it. And then I reached out to a few companies and said, look, because one of the businesses I started when I was 20 was a direct sales business. So I was used to going out there and signing people up for charities or restaurants or gas and electricity. I went, got to get out there. You've got to tell people about this because this is really important. And nobody in the pet in the raw was really thinking big enough. And I just sat with me for a couple of weeks. I went, you know what? This just feels totally wrong. The medical profession is promoting this highly processed food. And I'm like, it's just, when you look at it, it just makes sense. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a vet. I'm just a Geordie, a bloke who loves cats and dogs. And I've figured this stuff out. I need to go and tell more people about it. So we launched in 8 years ago, and we grew incredibly fast online. I did all the things that I learned over the last 25 years of building businesses online. I just put that in. I created a community online, and it just went absolutely crazy. And it was just, it was very much, it resonated with lots of people at that time about highly processed food and looking at their own health. And the success stories that we started to see on social about how we changed pets' lives instantly. There was a slight secret that I haven't really told many people, Richard. I'm going to tell you on your show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Is the reason I wanted to do this was a bigger reason, is because I wanted to show people, if you feed your cat and dog right, they'll become healthy. They won't be at the vet as much, and they won't be sick. That was my hypothesis.
Yes.
Because I've seen what happened to me when I ate clean food. And that was a way of me getting into the house and start saying, hey, maybe if you did this with your kids, with yourself, you may stay healthier and take the stress off the NHS. That was my secret goal. And the results have been absolutely phenomenal that we've seen from customers. We're now the largest direct-to-consumer natural feed, raw pet food business in the UK now, within 8 years. And I know nothing about pet food. I just recruited lots of people who did.
Well, that's the way to do it, isn't it? You know, I know a man who can.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I mean, it's interesting you say that because, as you say, we, like a lot of people, will go to the supermarket and they'll go, oh, yes, cat food. And the supermarkets, of course, found a need that people, whilst they're there, well, they may as well just have some cat food. So we'll get that. It's highly processed. And we've treated the cats as we've treated ourselves. And we haven't treated ourselves terribly well because, as you say, the processed foods just magically appears on the shelves, and we just don't really give it too much consideration. And then if we do, we're not giving the pet food the consideration. And of course, if you think in nature, what does as you say, what do animals naturally do? You don't see them sitting at the roadside rustling up some bacon and or putting in a TV dinner into a microwave. Which would be very difficult for them anyway, but they're not doing that. And yet they've been healthy ever since animals roamed the planet. The problem, it seems to me, is, and we've seen that with real food, is there's an actual cost to real food, healthy food. Mm-hmm. And the artificial stuff has been artificially taken down to be very cheap. And so when people think, oh yeah, I'd like to feed my animals healthy food, they sort of squirm at the price. Do you find that?
Oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely spot on there. And I can't remember the numbers. I'm not going to even tell. But there was a number quoted somewhere that said in the 1950s, something like 50 or 60% of the wage went on food. It's about 10% today.
And when you sort of say to people, as we are at the moment, telling people to sort of go and look at farm food and they go, but it's so expensive. And you go, but it's your health.
Absolutely. Because we want to take the magic pill and deal with the consequences of it rather than deal with the source. So yes. Absolutely, that is the key, is real food costs real money. There's just no getting around that. If you want to put cardboard or sawdust, and this is how crazy it can get, and I'm going to be a bit controversial, but hey, why not?
Why not?
You could get a bag of sawdust, and then I could get a mix from China of vitamins and minerals and all that. Pour that into that bag of sawdust, and that would pass the FEDIAF, which is the European feed. I can't remember the full name of it. Because
I mean, these days nothing surprises me, so it's like I'm not sort of like, blimey, that's outrageous. But hopefully people are thinking, hang on, that is outrageous.
Well, it is, because you don't look at the ingredients, you look at the minerals, the vitamins, and stuff like that. And that's the problem with all these types of, and I'm sure it started off with good intentions to begin with. So I'm not saying that the evil people out there, not at all. but we've got to look at the quality of the ingredients, and the challenge with the human world and with the pet world, and pet world even worse. I mean, if you watch the Jeremy Clarkson thing on, his farm, you often hear about the crops not being quite up to standard, and the phrase they use is not good enough as humans, but it's fine for animal feed. And you
Yes.
go, oh, great. So now we're going to give it to our animals instead. Oh, fabulous. And you are what you eats as well.
Yes.
So all these things you start connecting the dots, and you go, it's incredible how we've come so disconnected from the cost of food and what really goes into it. And you see that in the supermarkets as well. You look at the organic range, it's available, but because we're not prepared to pay the price, it's a very small part of the shelf.
And if they said, look, here we are, you can make up our food, just nip down to your local sawmill, grab a great big bag of sawdust, and then just pour this magic solution. I don't think people would want to feed that to their animals, would they?
No.
And because it's disguised and it's all this stuff is called different names, and you go, oh yes, and so it doesn't enter your head that what you're feeding is something that is totally unnutritious.
Yeah, absolutely.
And damaging to the whole, it's causing inflammation, cancers, problems, and they die unnecessary and probably suffer.
And you're absolutely right. And they're very clever at marketing. So the meat derivative. Well, what does that actually mean? Meat derivative. Would you buy a pork chop called meat derivative? No, you'd buy pork chop.
Yeah.
And to your point, bacon sarnie, you know what it is, and maybe not the best, but that is the key is the companies that also control the associations are the companies that they're self-policing. So of course they're going to make it easy on labeling to get away with stuff. That's the crazy thing here. And if the first thing you should look at on any, whether it's cat or dog food, is the first ingredients is the main ingredients. So if it isn't chicken, if it isn't beef,
what is it?
What is it? And the other thing is how can you make dry dog food last for 2 years?
Right, in storage and then distributed and all of that.
Would you eat it?
Open up,
Would you eat it open?
No. I say no, but then in the past I probably have eaten, not dog food particularly, although I did eat bonios when I used to do a performing job, but that was a completely different thing. That was a comedy routine. But people are eating in their supermarket stuff that has been travelled all these air miles that we're supposedly trying to stop carbon and all of this nonsense, and then it's been stored, and then it comes out onto the shelf, and then it's got a sell-by date, and we open it up and we go, no, it looks all right. And you think, how is it possible that it hasn't actually gone gangrenous or mouldy or all the things that you would expect fresh food to do if it was healthy?
There's a couple of points I want to say you brought up, which are brilliant. One is, so when you open a bag of kibble, it has fat in it, and every time the oxygen gets into that fat, it goes rancid. So it's almost like it's getting rusty. So that's what the problem is with when you start opening dog food. The second thing is to your point, is air miles and traveling. So your granny, for example, would have eaten a lot more of the organ meats and the parts of the animal from nose to tail, which would have been full of great nutrition. In the UK right now, we just eat muscle meat, which is the least nutritional part of the body. So part of the raw feeding, what we do is we try and mimic whole prey as much as possible. So we have 10% bone, 10% offal, and the rest of it is muscle meat. But that gives you, like, if your cat or dog was to catch an animal and eat it, that is what you're mimicking. That's what they're designed to eat, not just muscle meat, and certainly not grain. The last thing that were ever designed, like humans, is to eat grain. So the benefit of raw is we've got all these amazing animals, especially in Scotland, where we get a lot of our produce from. And rather than those parts of those animals being shipped off to Africa, to Asia, around the world, because we don't eat those parts of the animals anymore, we're using them, and they're wonderful, and they're staying in the UK. So the air miles that we're using, so that animal in the field is now fully getting used in the UK. I mean, for me, that's just an amazing part of what we're doing. And we're also making it more affordable for farmers, because as you make more of the animal more valuable, they can make more money, which is great for those guys as well and girls. So there's so many upsides that you when you're feeding your animals real food from the UK, there's so many upsides for the farmers, and ultimately maybe the prices could come down because we can afford to do that. There's all these things that come, but the longer that we continue to feed our pets highly processed food, the more the more reason for these big food companies to try and protect it because it's incredibly profitable for them. I'm not going to name names, but some of these guys who you'll know, and they do human food as well, make more money off pet food than they do off the human food, profitability wise. That shows you the poor ingredients that's going into it. And then they team up with certain medical institutions and they stick some stamps on it, and then they charge you even more because it's got some validation on it. And as I've seen on your previous videos, sciences are often down to interpretation. And often a lot of you read these articles that are, the science behind it, and you go, there's 5 dogs or 3 cats or over 6 weeks, and there was no.
And you go, and the science is fixed, on this tiny little test, and then somebody else will have another theory. But if they're not in with the right crowd, their theory, like might be, feed your cats and dogs raw food. I mean, a friend of ours is a farmer, and he just feeds them carcasses of chickens and things. And so the question was, but what about the bones? Will they not get stuck in the craw? And we all think this. And as the farmer said, well, what do you think they did in the wild? Did they go, I just take that bone out and put it over there. Take that bone out. Of course they don't. These animals are designed to eat in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on there. And the difference is making sure that people don't feed cooked bones, because cooked bones will shatter and they're dangerous.
Right.
Raw bones are soft and they will break. And you're right. If we've got cats, I've got outside cats. I'm always surprised by what they can do with a rabbit, considering the size of them. But they seem to munch through it, and they always seem to leave like a foot or something like that.
Well, I do wish that my cat wouldn't bring the mouse or rat or whatever it's called, or bird, and say, "Hey, look, Dad, I've got this." Yeah, that's very nice. Eat it, but eat it outside. But it doesn't seem to eat it, and that does seem to be another problem, that they've lost some of their instinct because they're so used to having the treats. They come in and they're like going, "Where's my nice sugary treat that will cause me some grief?"
Yeah.
And you go, "Well, I don't know that I ought to be doing this." And, well, where is it? Yes, all right. And then you see the pets that have been overfed with this stuff. They barely have any exercise. They bloat out, and clearly, they're the loving pet owner trying to do its best doesn't realise in this day and age now, because of the adverts and all the messaging and all of that they are actually damaging their animal by over loving it, by spooning out this pap.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point around the pet, the cats going out there and catching wildlife, there was a study actually showed that the cats that fed raw don't go out for as many animals.
Really?
They've got that feed of it. But also cats that are raw tend to eat the animals as well, because it's just so natural for them with their taste buds. You see, whenever I've done a talk at a pet conference, a pet food conference, I always get these people coming up after me going, "Oh, can I speak to you, Mark, about your pet food? I'm a taste specialist. I help make your cat or dog eat food." I'm like, if it's natural, why would you need to make them try and eat it? And then you start, there's certain crisps in a tube. I don't know if you'll know them. But once you have one, there's no stopping. You are working your way down to the bottom there. You'll leave one just because you'll feel guilty otherwise.
Yeah.
But
who's going to have the last one?
Yeah, not me.
No, well, I'll have it.
I've got control. But that's where the key is the fact that they have to get these people in to make the food so tasty that they'll eat it. They'll put gravy stuff on it. They'll put jelly stuff on it. All this stuff is what they'll do in order to get the animals to eat it. And what I think we now have, especially in cats, is we have a bunch of cats who are now addicts. Now, if you've got a child who's addicted to something, you will work really hard to help that child get off that addiction. The problem with the pet world is we go, "Oh, my cat doesn't like this fresh food, but it's not. It's just because they've been made to be addicted to that other food, and it can take 3 to 6 months to get them off that addicted food. But honestly, when I see the results and when we do our survey, you know, the results that people see when they feed their raw is absolutely amazing. So, one that the every year we put out a questionnaire to our customers, new customers, and 86% said that they saw an improvement in their digestive issues in their pet. I mean, 86%. It's not like 2%, 80%. No. That's without any medication at all. Cats and dogs with patchy fur, 63% improvement just by changing their food. I mean, this is just, it's just like, it just shows you. So it reminds me that food can either be a medicine or a poison. And the problem with food being a poison, it's a bit like smoking, that when you smoke a cigarette, you can't prove that cigarette caused cancer. I mean, they've got studies now, but that's how they got away with it for 50 years. So how do you prove that bit of food caused diabetes, pancreatitis, and all these different wonderful chronic diseases that this food, and that's how they get away with it. And unlike companies like Bella and Duke, we are now paying for studies. We're kind of one of the first in the raw to pay for studies to show the difference between raw and processed food. So in the past, it's just been the big companies paying for these studies through universities. Now we're kind of giving them a run for money. So I'm super excited that we can start to put facts and figures behind some of the things that we're already seeing. And that's how science works, isn't it? You know, if you think about, high intensity training, HIIT, as they call it, scientists didn't come up with that. What they saw is all these sprinters had huge muscles. And they're like, why have they got big muscles? And then they started looking at how they train. They went, if you do high intensity, it causes muscle growth. And that's the science just backs up what you're seeing. What we've got in raw is there's so much great evidence, but it's not backed up by science yet. And that's right. The bit. So they'll get away with it for as long as they possibly can. But at some point, just like we are seeing in the human world, in America with Kennedy talking about getting rid of highly processed food for humans, suddenly people are going to connect the dots and go, well, if that's the right thing for humans, how come we're not talking about this for their pets? And that's when it gets super, super exciting. But it will cost you more. So we just need to do a lot of education around why it costs more. But you can either have a high vet bill or you can pay a little bit more.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, vets now, these days, I mean, a lot of them have all gone and are owned by big corporations. And they're selling packages on the assumption that your pet will get ill. And and so you've got this nice dog, or you've got this cat or rabbit or whatever it is, and you'll sign you up to this scheme, and we'll give you so many injections of something rather miserable, which is supposed to keep your pet free from all this crap, but actually may well be doing some damage. Let's not say too much. But at the same time, it's like it's as if to say animals are like you will get ill, and so in order to prevent this, join us. And you're spending this monthly whatever on something which you could be spending that monthly amount on your food, so that the pet doesn't need the blooming vet at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a vet hater. I love vets. They do an amazing job. Cat broken leg, you want them there, and those guys. So
sure.
And they are dictated by the bigger, associations who they're part of, and they're also part of the bigger food chain. So there's a whole piece of changing. But I absolutely agree that there's so many things that we do for our pets because we're causing the fire in the first place, and we could easily change that. And it's the same with the NHS. If you want to fix the NHS, stop putting money in it. Just start taxing crap food and use that, and
no, absolutely. I totally get it about the, it's the same with the NHS. If you break your leg, you want someone to be able to put it in plaster and set it. But that when you get a slight headache or you get a sniffly cough or whatever it might be, and you rush to the GP to get a little white pill, oh gosh, I feel I'm entitled to be well. I need to go to the GP to make me well. It may be that your body is just detoxing some of the crap you've actually put in it. And presumably that's the same with animals. If you put something nasty in, their bodies are going to fight it and try and get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And leaky gut is one of the big ones. There's leaky gut for humans, and it is for animals. And this is one of my big aha moments. I used to get itchy skin myself, and I just got rid of the gluten part in my body. What we created is a bone broth for pets as well. Your granny used to make it. Your granny used to boil the bones down for 24 hours. It used to stink, and then make soups out of it and stuff, and that heals your gut. And you go, great. And to your point, often the pill of vitamin C is more effective than just going down to the doctors. So,
Mm.
going back, like we cause a lot of these problems through our lifestyle. And also stress can play a big part. Stress on the animals as well as yourself. I mean, they're pack animals, and a lot of people got cats and dogs in lockdown, and they're like, "Oh, it's great, my pack's around me all the day." Then suddenly the pack goes back to the office. They start leaving. It can cause stress in animals, and all this can cause chronic diseases as well. So there's many things that we hadn't quite thought about when we had pets uh, in lockdown that when we came out the other side. So there's not one thing, but there's many things, and I think vets play an important role. But and it's the same with doctors. When I went to the doctors, I had high cholesterol and I had gout, and they wanted to give me tablets, and I'm like, well, can I not change my diet?
Mm.
And they're like, no, you should take these. Anyway, I did change my diet. I really worked on it, and 2 years later, I'm off. I'm not on any of those tablets. And they said, oh, that's great. You don't need to take the tablets anymore. I could be on this for the next 30, 40 years and costing the NHS because they just didn't deal with the diet part of it that I wanted to go off. And I think, Richard, when you're talking about these and on the other videos, this is the sort of information we got to get out to Joe Blogs, is just keep reinforcing it, because we are so much empowered to control our health. We don't need to rely on tablets. There is a time for it, don't get me wrong. But a lot of these chronic diseases are self-inflicted. So, making sure that you're eating correctly, making sure you're exercising, making sure you're looking for your brain mentality, not stressed out, etc., managing all that are really, 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 really important. And it's the same for our pets.
And the home environment these days has, I mean, we've got all these EMFs and water has got fluoride in that we just naturally, we might filter the water for us, but do we filter it for our pet? I mean, I filter it or use the reverse osmosis. I look down there as if he was in the room. They're sitting in front of the fire downstairs, quite happy to sit there in front of the fire whilst I go up and do some work in a cold studio. But the home environment is not quite the same, and a lot of people keep their pets in for significant. I mean, some cats are just home cats or flat caps, flat caps, flat. Yeah, you know what
flat
I mean.
cats, that'll work too.
By that, I don't mean a steamroller is roll over. They just stay inside people's flats, and I don't know how healthy that is, because with central heating and all of that, that must also affect the animals themselves, and those are things that we don't necessarily, food we could change, but also the environment, because we're not necessarily thinking when we've domesticated them, are we thinking the whole thing through? Because I wouldn't want to be stuck inside all day every day. I would like to get out at least for half an hour or an hour on a walk somewhere, because it's well, the four walls get to you, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And even the basic things like vitamin D, and that's why these they lick it off their fur and stuff like that.
Do they?
It's all really, really important. So making sure there's enough vitamin D in their food for that reason, especially if they're indoor cats, they'll catch it. But I mean, to your point, I mean, you buy a smelly candle for your house, it could be a terrible thing for your animal, but we don't think about it. You walk along the path in the city, and your dog is at exhaust level.
Yes.
Well, depending, unless you've got one of them big ones. But all these things that are affecting you, but they're also affecting your pet. To your point, the Wi-Fi. Are you turning the Wi-Fi off? Have you got a kill switch? All these things that are good for you are also good for your pet. Are you washing their bedding in laundry stuff that's not doing them good? Is it being absorbed? You've got fire retardant on the furniture. I mean, we could go on and on. Even to, I mean, as humans, I try and wear cotton as much as possible, natural cotton, because we don't ground as much as we used to because we wear rubber shoes. If your cat's not going outside and they're in the flat, how do they ground? Because we need to ground. We need to put our feet on the ground sometimes, and there's science now showing behind that. So it's really, where'd you stop?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this
Where'd
is
you
it.
stop?
I mean, I suppose, the way I look at it is that the last 100 years or so has been an interesting experiment to take men, women, children, and their animals out of a natural environment where they can run around and go into the fields and, work hard and all of that and get fresh air and things, and plonk them all inside and give them processed food. And what's happened? We see people exploded in size, they're very ill, and here we are, the 21st century, supposedly at the top of our game, sitting behind screens playing virtual reality when reality is just out there. It does seem to be like, okay, if you look at that as an experiment, what to do with human life, okay, let's stop that experiment now because it's really not working. And
Yeah.
we've learned that actually the big industrialized, corporatized, processized world is really just not beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the community part of it, there's that which we're not getting either. So those
No.
basic the needs, and your animal's the same. That's packed. I was speaking to Bruce Daycare. Bruce is this guy from South Africa. He set up, and he was talking about the dogs, and they have a pet bus that goes and picks them up, and the dogs are just waiting at the front door for the bus to come because they go in and they leg it on the bus, they hang out and have their crazy day at their the play area, then come back absolutely knackered, fast
Yes.
asleep. They're all, but you go and they're looking forward to it, and as humans as well, we need that more than ever. We need more of these communities because we know that helps with longevity. We know that helps with our health, and so forth. So again, no different for our pets as it is for us as humans.
So why is it that we can't see it? Why are we here in this situation? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but why is it that people just have become so lazy to the point where you take the processed packet off and, that convenience of everything rather than trying to source raw food and then going, oh, I don't want that raw food sitting on a plate in my kitchen because my kitchen is spotless and I'm using all this special spray to make sure it's, and any bugs have been annihilated. And you think, yeah, but you might well be annihilating yourself because we need all that exposure.
Richard, you set me up so beautifully. I love you for this. So the gut biome is such an important part of our body for our resisting bugs coming in. We've got the mouth biome, we've got the tongue biome, we've got the skin biome, we've got the stomach biome, the gut biome. What they've shown in raw fed pets is the whole family benefits from having cats and dogs, and benefits even more from having raw fed cats and dogs. So the complete opposite of what you would think. For the reason that if you're exposed to these kind of bugs, your body builds an intolerance. Generally, it's just healthier, and you can fight off things. That's what your body's meant to do. Because you sanitize everything, I'm not saying you do, but because people do,
yes,
we're not exposed to that. Now, I'm not saying, hey, you should go and lick the chopping board after you've chopped her, or I'm not saying you should do that either.
No.
And you've got to have healthy spaces. But that was the whole point about Bella and Duke. How can we bring it in a safe space? You defrost it, you put it into their bowl. It's dead easy. It's dead easy. You couldn't get half the ingredients that we put into the food, like the trachea, the part of the beef, which is brilliant for joints and stuff like that, and bones in the animals and the ligaments. You just wouldn't get that in the supermarket. So you couldn't, it's not as easy to create a complete meal because we don't eat nose to tail anymore. And some of the butchers still have some, but not enough. So we've tried to make it as safe and as easy as possible. You take it out the freezer, you put it in the fridge at the bottom, you can put it in a tub or whatever, you let it defrost, it lasts for 4 days, and each day you just take it out and put it back. It's really, really easy, and you just clean down the utensils. I think it takes 2 minutes. And that's because we know safety is priority for a lot of people, especially if you've got young children. But I also hear the arguments, and I've heard this especially from vets, and I've never quite understood this. But wouldn't you get salmonella or something from your dog if they were fed raw? Well, I don't know if you've seen many dogs, but they lick each other's butts and their balls. and you're worried about
You're worried about, yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And to the point, there's a lot of cats that are raw fed because they just go out and grab stuff.
Yeah.
So where do we start and stop? I mean, it's just bonkers. It's just absolutely ludicrous, the argument.
I mean, I always think we would never be where we are. 100 years ago, we wouldn't be at where we are 100 years ago because man has evolved eating raw and cooking stuff, and stuff is not always cooked fully. I mean, we've got to it. We're so pampered now that that is the problem. So another question that would immediately come to mind that I imagine people might ask is go, well, won't it pong?
Actually, when I used to do outdoor sales and business to business, I remember going to this sausage factory down in Middlesbrough in Sunderland, and they did stink. They were humdy chum, but it's because the stuff that they put in it.
Yeah.
Fresh meat shouldn't stink. That's the whole
Right.
point. So when we get the food in, when we get the raw material in, it comes in frozen to it. So it's actually within 24 hours of the kill, it's frozen down. It comes in blocks. It comes into our factory frozen. We put it through huge machines, like massive machines, and they break it all up, including the bones and stuff, mince it all down, but it's still frozen. It's still minus zero. It's still
Right.
below zero, and then it gets filled into the tubs, and then it's straight into the freezer. It never goes above zero in that whole process. I mean, it costs us
Right.
a fortune to get this factory set up.
Yes,
But that
I
was
bet.
for that reason we wanted to do it and make it as safe as possible. We've had people coming in from the agencies, the government agencies, check food factories, Alpha and DEFRA, and they said our factory is better than most of the human foods that they go to. And that is because we wanted to be an example that you can create great food safely for our pets. And yes, it does cost more than 22p a day. It might cost you 80p or a pound, but it's certainly cheaper than most lattes,
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, and who knows what ingredients are in that syrupy? Some people put all sorts of weird things in. Are there? I mean, presumably there are other companies that are doing similar to you, smaller companies who are doing this. And that can only be a good thing. I mean, we do seem to be, with the age of the internet and the age of podcasts and videos and interviews and things, more people are now freer to discuss this, which ordinarily the only output they would have is, well, mainstream media and advertising, which would be mostly the big brands who have the money to do all of that. So people would only think, oh, that's the only option. And of course, we've seen family-run businesses having been decimated again or obliterated, and you might be lucky to have a little pet shop round the corner. We do have one in Worthing, where I am, and it's very good. So we go there when we needed to get just a few things. But we actually get for the cat. It is a as far Julia organises it, but as far as I know, it is a cooked meat, which may not be, but it's not. It's not your big brands, so we may well be looking at your website to see about switching it to raw. But my point is, hopefully these sort of conversations are going on the internet. Family, people who love pets rather, are having this and slowly learning. So the question I wanted to put is, are you seeing an upturn in people turning to what the sort of thing you're doing?
Absolutely. I think when we started 8 years ago, you would say it was on the peripheral. Well, that's the one. And now, when we came through COVID times, we noticed that 70% of the dogs signing up were puppies. So in the past, it was
How do they sign up then? Have they got
they're
a little
very clever. We've got
Very.
really good UX guys.
They've got disposable thumbs.
Absolutely legendary.
Legend.
Yes. So when we first started, a lot of people came to Raw because it was the last hope. They tried everything and then they went to Raw, and then wow, what a difference it made, which is what I did with my dogs. Now more and more people go, no, I'm going to feed my dog from puppy, and that's the big game changer. It's going mainstream. We're now in Pets at Home, for example, so we're going mainstream, and that's the bit where I think all this momentum, and that's why I got super excited about America and what they're talking about doing with the big food companies and highly processed food. It's not going to take long for all these guys to go, oh, right, we really need to stay ahead of the curve now because people have cotton on. So I think there is more and more people talking about it in our Bella and Duke group on Facebook. That's the best place for me to do marketing because I go, well, don't listen to me. I'm the founder. Of course, I'm enthusiastic. Of course, I believe in it. But speak to customers who were skeptical about it and, hey, come together in our community. And we have a very open and transparent community. And it's tougher sometimes because sometimes things mess up and they hold you accountable. But I think ultimately, the problem with many brands today, and I'm going to go off on one, sorry, Richard. The problem with their brands today is when I do an interview with people, I ask people, hey, name me a brand that you love. And most people go, and they struggle. Right. One person did say pot noodles, and unfortunately they didn't get the role. but most, I'll suggest
pot noodles not for pets.
No, not for pets.
Hey, I've got this lovely little pot noodle for you.
Yeah. And this little ice cream on the side.
Yeah.
So people struggle to find brands that they absolutely love today. And I think that's one of the things that Bella and Duke's got really good at. You either love us, you hate us, but at least you have an opinion of us. And that for me,
you're a Marmite company.
Absolutely, without all the highly processed stuff in it. But that's really where I really want to position as a company is we're authentic. Sometimes we mess up, sometimes we're there. But as more and more information comes out, we'll adapt and we'll move on.
But when you say you mess up, is that more on the sort of not so much the food quality itself, but the delivery, processing, boxing, the logistics?
No, on the ingredients as well. So
right,
I'll give you a good example. So for a long time we did salmon oil, and then we discovered actually salmon oil oxidizes and is not as good. So then we moved to herring oil, and we were the only company to move to herring oil. And then we'll move to algae oil. So every time we get more information as it comes out and we learn more, this is not a cost thing. It costs us more to put this in, but it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do, yeah. And you're adapting to the knowledge as you get it, which is, correct. Because how can you be 100% perfect on day one?
No, I mean, my mum tells me I am, but absolutely.
And she's obviously a lovely mum. She lies brilliantly.
Yeah, she is. She's wonderful at lying. She's in sales. But also, I mean, for example, there was a research came out that said even if you just feed 25% raw, then you still get a lot of the benefits. So I'm like, well, let's talk about that because I don't want this just to be a cost thing. Like, it's all or nothing. They're not like, you can't do one or the other. No, like mix some kibble in if you have to, fill it out because money is tight for some of us, and it is. But as long as you get a minimum of 25% good quality raw in there, you're making big gains.
I think that is absolutely a vital point to underline and stress, because you could equate that to us humans, that people often think, oh God, the switch is either go to the supermarket or go to the farm shop. And again, if you can only afford to go to the farm shop 1 or 2 days a week and feed from some proper grass-fed beef or whatever it is, then that's better than not doing it at all. And you're going to get different health benefits. And obviously, the more you can gravitate to, when we started only going to food shops and then we would go around to somebody else, or even in restaurants and things, and you'd go, I don't know what meat this is, but it doesn't taste the same. Yeah. And then you realize you suddenly can't go back because your taste has changed, because actually you like to taste the food rather than just munch on something that has some solidity to it or not. And those artificial, you taste the artificial flavors and you think, I don't know what that is now. But if you can give, as you say, it absolutely follows, if you can at least do 25%, your animal is going to benefit.
Absolutely. And another point which I didn't make was when you feed dry dog food or dry cat food or whichever food, processed food, if you're feeding the same for breakfast, lunch and dinner, the same food 7 days a week, that's not good for you, because your gut flora needs to have variety. You're meant to have lots of proteins and stuff. I mean, even in the UK, we mainly eat 4 proteins. You might eat venison, you might eat pigeon, you might eat, but most of us eat lamb, pork, chicken, and beef. Occasionally turkey. So it's really important to mimic as much as possible the wild. So a dog would catch, or a cat would catch one animal. It might catch a squirrel one day. It might catch a pigeon the next day. It might find the carcass of a deer the next day. They're certainly not going to be eating the same thing. So if you're feeding your cat or your dog the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week, that's also affecting the gut biome as well, and that can have a massive impact as well. So variety is the key as well as quality.
Well, you wouldn't want to do it to yourself, would you? No. You wouldn't want to sit down and go, oh yeah, it's, whatever it is, rump steak or sirloin. Not again. I've had it for, every day this week. Give me a tin of baked beans, just, any old crap. Now, because I guess it's just, no, I think Julia, though, she would probably sit and eat nice quality beef. Yeah, she
on the carnivore diet, yes.
On the carnivore diet. But you're right. You do need, you want a bit of a change, and I can imagine that animals in the wild would do that. They've got the pick, haven't they? They go well, and also depends what they manage to catch.
Yeah, absolutely, and seasonal as well. It's
and seasonal, yeah.
We eat bananas all year round. When did you grow a banana in the UK?
Well, this is it, and you've got nothing to look forward to. I mean, strawberries used to come out in June, and you had to look forward to them, and now we're eating that you can get them all year round. I mean, it's just nice occasionally to know that in the deep freeze you might have got some fruits of the forest to shove with something and a bit of nice cream from raw milk or whatever to go on it, which is nice, but. On the whole, we can eat anything, and it does. What do you look forward to?
Well, on that point as well, your body, especially if you're from the UK or Northern Europe, you're meant to eat berries at the end of the summer because that indicates to the body that autumn and winter's coming, so start putting on fat like the bears do. Yeah. So because we eat fruit now all year round, our body's like, this is not right. Does this mean we're going to go into fasting for the?
Yeah. What's happening now? Yeah.
So all these things, we are cave people in the modern world, and that's the problem. Our bodies haven't adapted yet. Will it? Who knows? Maybe. Can we change it? Maybe. I don't know. But what I'm seeing in our pets are really good examples because you probably get 5 generations of dog, maybe even up to 10, depending on the breed, to every 1 generation of human. So you're seeing this cycle go through the cats and dogs quicker, and something like I want to say 68 or 70% of dogs in the UK now are overweight or obese. I mean, that's just absolutely bonkers. So if you want to see where we are going as humans, look at our pets, and that's the thing we've got to reverse. They are wonderful beings, animals. They're pets. They're amazing, but we should look at them and go, okay, is that what we want to happen to us as humans? Because it's a bit like the in the mine, the little birdie,
Oh yeah, the canary.
Canary, thank you. For us, that's our canary, and we've got to be really mindful of that. So, I think.
And just on that note about the overweight pets and things, I mean, when I had this cat, and this cat says I'm sort of looking after it for Julia because she's got 3 other cats in her home. And when it came, I said, oh, I'm a bit worried. It looks very scrawny. And she said, no, that's the perfect weight. And she said, I've weighed it, I've checked it, it's perfect weight. And I suppose because I hadn't had a cat for a long, long, long time, and then you see other cats and they're sort of, and you see them in cartoons and all quite rotund and all of this. And I had a different idea of what a pet's weight should look like. But when it's actually at its proper weight, it's quite a surprise because you think, oh, that cat seems malnourished, but it may not be malnourished. I'm not saying that they are, or if they're thin. I mean, it might actually need some food, by the way. But I'm just saying we do get, if we're feeding our pets and they are putting on weight because they're eating wood chips and goodness knows what, fats and things that they shouldn't be, we're getting a different idea of what a pet would look like. Whereas go back 150 years ago and you're on the farmstead or whatever it is, and you've got working animals and they're working and they may eat a ton. They're probably not big, fat, plump things.
Absolutely. And you were spot on there because I was speaking to a vet friend and he said the best way to tell is if you hold your hand like that, that's basically, if you rub your fingers across your knuckles, that is how you should feel the ribs on a
Right.
cat or a dog.
On a cat. No
That
dog.
means if it's like that, when you clench your fist, then it's too underweight. It's underweight. And if it's
Right.
like that, then it's
Can't quite see.
overweight. Sorry,
Can't
sorry.
see that one. Yeah.
If it's the opposite of that, that's overweight.
Oh, right.
So that's the way. But you're absolutely right that we've forgotten what lean should look like. And I spoke to a vet, and they said I can tell when I've got a raw fed cat coming in just by their front, because they have more lean mass. And if you think about bodybuilders and all these, they talk about eating protein to build the muscle, etc. So it's the same for animals. If you feed them, it's very difficult for a cat or a dog to put weight on, and be overweight
Right.
on raw. It's just very
On raw.
difficult
Yeah.
because the process of processing meat takes longer. It takes more energy to do that. The building blocks are better. Where carbs, they can just really mess with you. They can give you highs and lows, sugar dumps, all these things. And we see it in ourselves. When you clean your diet up, no matter what you do, if you clean your diet up, whether you do vegetarian, whether you do carnivore, if you're cutting out crappy processed food, you just feel great because you don't get the ups and downs.
Absolutely attest to that. Absolutely. I mean, and a little video came up on YouTube when I was looking at it, and it was why did people look skinny in the 60s and 70s? And I said, well, because they were healthier, was my immediate reaction. I watched the video, and it said, yes, they weren't being fed all this processed food, and they were healthier because people basically don't put on all these layers of fat from eating healthy food.
And
because it's very difficult to do it.
Yeah, and I don't think it was about calorie counting either. I think they were eating like 3,000 calories, but the quality of the calorie.
Yes.
A quality of a chocolate bar calorie is not the same as the calorie of a lettuce, even though we've made it simple. So if people go, it's like this 5 a day and all this kind of stuff. It's there to try and make something simple, but the reality of it is it's not quite the same. If you eat quality calories, your body, you fuller for longer, etc. So all these things, all these benefits, and your body knows what to do with it.
Yes.
This is the great thing is your body, like the problem they're showing now with sugars is that all these false sugars are causing reactions in the tongue that's sending messages down and causing diabetes, because that you would be better off having real sugar than the crappy alternative sugars that they're giving us, because the body knows what to do with real sugars, not these false sugars. But that's a whole different podcast.
That's another, no, absolutely, totally get it. Well, how long have we been talking? I don't like to keep this on for too drastically long. Look at that, 52 minutes. It's just passed by. Just trying to think now if there's any other last minute questions, because every now and again I'll get a comment saying, Richard, you didn't ask.
You didn't ask him that.
Well, I never prepare anything because it's it's a conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's have a look at your website then. So we may as well give you the promotion, seeing as you've given it. Tell us all about how wonderful raw food is, and if I just press a few select buttons here, it should come up. Here we go. So this is bellaandduke.com, and I'll put the link in the description so people can look that up. Discover the UK's #1 rated pet food, and why Bella and Duke, and it'll obviously tell us it's all good. I notice at the top there, it's gone now. They're 40%. Oh, here we go. Yeah, 40% off your first box. So is it a mail order? Is that what you do, a mail order sort of process?
Yeah, it's a subscription business. So you can have it, you can pause it at any time you want, and the food just comes on a regular basis, so you don't have to think about it. So if you're like me, crazy busy, got lots going on in your life, it's one less thing to worry about, and you're in full control. And obviously you can get them now in places like Pets at Home. We're now stocking our food in there as well.
Oh, wow, look at that.
And you get
chicken, grass-fed lamb, veg, berries, kelp, turmeric. I mean, I'm salivating myself. I wouldn't necessarily eat it raw, but isn't that lovely? Sustainable white fish and all of that. So they come in these little pouches. Let's have a look at one. If I click that, there we go. It comes in a little pouch. Easy to, and that's a one meal? You just plop.
It depends on the size of the dog. So we work it all out for you. When you click on that get started, it's got a calculator. It works it all out for you. We send the food based on your cat and dog and what they need, and you can increase it, decrease it to your heart's delight. But what you will know is that everything in there, there's a reason for all the ingredients for being in there. There's no fillers. It's if you understand food in the human world, you'll look at this and go, oh yes, I get why all this food is in there.
Yeah. Look at that. Well, there you are. I can see what I'm going to be having tonight. I just cook it up. Cook it up.
Nice little pate. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, let me just get back to us again. We'll just get rid of that and press whichever button it is. You know, you wouldn't want to cook up what comes out of cat food tins and things. You know, you just look at it very dubiously, wouldn't you, and go, oh, yeah. I don't think I could eat that. But if pinch came to shove, if you cook what you've got there, you're not going to suffer. It would appear.
No, I mean the only thing.
Not recommending it.
No, it's only because of the bone. The rest of it's fine. If it didn't have the bone in, you could cook it.
Right.
Cook it. But yeah, it all comes from it's all human grade, so it all comes from the human chain. So wherever you get your food from is where we get the food from as well. Exactly the same places.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it? There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Well, do go and investigate then that raw food. And of course, if you've got other raw food providers that are as good, then, you know, they're there as well, of course. The main thing is to get the pets off the highly processed foods and the sugar and especially the wood chip, which clearly is not a good idea. And as well, if you're doing that for your pet, you may as well do it for yourself so that you and your pet are nice and healthy and you can go running with your dog. Absolutely. Which sounds very good. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us all about what you do. Before you go, if you've got, you said that you were an entrepreneur with lots of ideas. If you've got other projects now, this is sort of up and running, and now you're, you know.
Thanks, Richard. So yeah, I mean, I stepped aside as CEO at Bella and Duke this year. I think part of being a serial entrepreneur, I'm a fire starter, so I know when to step up and also when to step down. And it needs steady hands now. You don't need the fire start. So my next thing is I've started training a shamanic course, so getting very much into the spiritual world, which is something I've.
Oh wow! We'll have to come back. Come back and tell us about that on another thing.
So yes, we'll be setting up a retreat is the next plan in helping people.
Wonderful. Well, there we go. That's it. You see, you're one of our kind of people, which is grand. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got something out of that. Look after your pets, and then you hopefully won't have to go to the vet and have some bad news or some disastrous result if you feed it well, and ourselves. Mark, lovely to have you on. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.
I will be back with more monologues and more wonderful guests. But in the meantime, from Mark and I, thank you for watching. Pat your pet on the head, feed it well. Till next time, bye for now.